Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's a creepy thing that happened to you that at the time you didn't realize how creepy it was until after? Please remember to like, share, hype, ask and listen for shoutouts, and subscribe. Had just moved to the United States. Was driving solo on Interstate 4 in Florida from Tampa to Orlando, doing a pretty good speed, when all of a sudden my front driver's side window shattered like exploded. I screamed like a little girl but kept driving. I didn't even pull over to assess the damage because, well, the window is clearly gone and the rest of the truck is clearly working. Not much else to diagnose. But obviously I have to find a glass shop. I do, and the technician asks me what happened. I'm looking for answers, surmising that maybe there was a buildup in pressure between the warm air outside and the cool air inside the truck. The technician reaches over to the passenger footwell. He picks up a little chunk of metal that I either never noticed or never thought about. At the time, I wouldn't have recognized it anyway. It was a bullet. Why someone shot at me, I have no idea. Not that a breach of traffic etiquette would warrant a bullet, but I'm a hyper-aware driver, fanatical about signaling and staying out of the left lane unless passing. Although, I guess I'm not so hyper-aware that I noticed the adjacent vehicle with someone pointing a gun at me. So yeah, I came within an inch or two of getting murdered. When I was 8 years old and living in Africa, I was shopping at a supermarket with my aunt when a man came up to her, looked at me, and whispered to her. My aunt shook her head, grabbed me, and left the market. When we got home, she told me that the man had been checking me out and apparently thought I would make a nice child bride, and offered my aunt some money in exchange for me. She obviously said no. When she told me, I didn't think anything of it and was a little flattered. Now I realize that I could have been sold if my aunt didn't say no. And we've kind of hated each other at that point in time, but I'm glad she didn't hate me that much. When I was in about 4th grade, my whole family, including grandparents, decided to take a trip to Yellowstone for a few weeks in July. We all drove, so we all stopped at this Carl's Jr. in Idaho for lunch on the first day. It was one of those truck stop combinations with the restaurant and gas station combined. They had this really cool little arcade alcove room that I decided to go into with permission from my parents because they weren't far at all. Well, I started to play the games and didn't even notice there was a guy in there standing against one of the pinball machines. Also, I should mention right here, I'm a girl, and I was pretty small at that age. He walks up behind me and tries talking to me about the logistics of the game I was playing and all this complicated shit, which at the time I thought was cool. Then he started to wrap his arms around my back to grab my hands on the controls, and I jerked away super fast and ran back into the dining area. I ran right over to my dad, who's a big man, much bigger than the guy that was trying shit, and told him what happened. My dad walked over calmly into the arcade, and maybe 30 seconds later, we all saw the guy walking out really fast. A panicked look on his face. My dad never said anything about what he said to the guy, and I still wonder what he said. I may ask him when I get a chance because we never saw that guy for the rest of the hour or two we were there. Thank goodness for protective dads. When I was around 7 or 8 in my public elementary school, I remember playing in the tall grass with my friend at aftercare. There was this very big patch of field on the playground that stretched about a mile away from a quiet road, and there were tall trees and bushes surrounding the fence that marked our boundaries. Whilst playing, I looked over and noticed 2 grown men taking photos of us. Confused, I pointed at them and made my friend look over, and they immediately ran off as if panicked. My friend thought it was flattering for some reason, but I was really confused. Thinking about how my dad always warned me of strangers, I dragged my friend over to the teachers and told them about it. They conducted a massive search all around the perimeter of the school, but they couldn't find the 2 men. I remember a massive crowd gathering around me and my friend as they asked us about it. I didn't think it was too weird until 2 years after. So not as bad as other ones here, but a few weeks ago, We had a sub in my geometry class. He just kind of was telling a story for no reason at the beginning of class, which was whatever. Better than doing work, right? Then he asked for a volunteer, and I was like, sure, I'm bored. So I go up there, and he asks me in front of the entire class if I have a boyfriend. I just uncomfortably said no, and then he grabbed my hand and started to slowly swing it back and forth and told me to pretend he was my boyfriend and asked me how it felt. Ugh. I didn't even know what to do at that point. It was weird, but something in me just thought it wasn't weird and I was just being oversensitive. He wouldn't let me go until I said it felt wonderful. I didn't even think of it until a few weeks ago. And maybe it's an overreaction, but it felt pretty creepy in retrospect. My mom, and my sister got home from being out late around 1 a.m., and I and my mom got into an argument about something so stupid I can't even remember what it was about. Like most teenage arguments. So I went outside to cool off, and to prevent saying something I would regret, it's worth mentioning that our house was surrounded by dense forest that led to a road in the center side of the forest. We had a farm-type fence, white with electric wires, because at the time we had cows around the property. So I'm at the side of the house, and at the back of the house we had a pool, and the pool house that had the pump and stuff. It's raining lightly, which I don't mind because I love rain. My sister is calling my name from the front door, asking me to come back inside before I get too cold. I didn't feel like talking to her, so I just stayed there, kind of just standing there thinking. She stops talking, and all of a sudden I hear heavy footsteps crunching on the rocks by the pool. Then, click, click. I turn the corner and see our pool house lights turning on and off, and the clicking is the light switch on the front of the little pool house. All I can see is the light turning off and on, and all I can hear is the clicking of the old rusty light switch. At this point I'm thinking it's probably just my sister, who probably just went around back to look for me. So I go to walk and tell her I'm fine. I take 2 steps and suddenly think, I've seen this movie. A girl fights with her mom, goes out to smoke, and then hears noise and then gets killed by an axe murderer. So I haul it back to the front door and run back inside. I was freaked out, but eventually forgot all about it until a few days passed when I asked my sister why she was flicking the lights on and off, and when she said she didn't, I was mortified. I still don't know who it was, but I do know it wasn't anyone with good intentions, and none of my neighbors lived that close to us. When I was younger, I took piano lessons for a long time, ages 7 to 13. My teacher was probably around 50 when I quit. I'm 20, so he's still around and teaching. I lost interest in piano after a while, but I kept taking it because he would guilt trip me about how all other hobbies suck compared to music, and I was his favorite student of all time. After a while, my lessons barely consisted of actually playing piano. He would always tell me how great and special and smart I was, how he loved that I listened to him because no other kids would do that. He talked a lot about politics and other stuff I don't remember. He always asked to hug me at the end, but other than that, never touched me. After I quit, he sent me a bunch of sad, desperate Facebook messages over the next few years. Looking back, I feel uncomfortable and stupid that I never realized how weird he could be. I'm glad he never tried anything really bad because I was such a timid kid, I don't know if I would have said anything. In the summer of 7th grade going into 8th, I was 13 and I agreed to go help my mom at her work. She works as a service lady in a hotel. Every weekend and maybe some weekdays it varied on tenants, plus I got some money from my mom, so it was pretty sweet going to work with her. Well, one day there were these tenants, a grandmother 80-ish and her grandson about 17 or 18, who were very sketchy and very creepy, especially the grandson. Well, at least to me he seemed creepy. So I went to the laundry room to get some clean white sheets for some rooms upstairs, and I had like 6 sets. So I had my hands full and could barely see in front of me. So as I was turning a corner, I saw that he was at the bottom of the stairs, and he offered to help, but I kindly declined his offer, and after letting me pass through, I noticed him staring at my back. So I was very creeped out, and started getting nervous and going faster up the stairs, but then he asked me my age, to which I lied and said I was 12, and of course he did not believe me. Then he asked me if I was allowed to date and if I had a boyfriend, and I said no to both. After some awkward silence, I ran up the stairs, and I was so grateful that I immediately found my mom in a nearby room because he followed me. My mom saw that I was terrified and told me to go inside the room and lock it. I peeked and saw that he was talking to my mom, trying to ask her if she had seen me. He didn't know she was my mom, but then out of nowhere, he took out his hunting rifle, and I was about to cry because I was so scared. My mom was fine. Some other tenants saw this taking place and intervened, threatened to call 911 since he wasn't even supposed to be upstairs for his room was on the first floor. However, that didn't stop him from harassing my mom's coworker, who also brought their daughters to work. Turns out that when one of the daughters asked them to step out of the room so she could clean, the guy stayed and came in from behind her while she was scrubbing a bathtub and groped her. After that, we told the manager, and when the tenants refused to leave, we called 911. Alright guys, hope everyone's doing well and getting ready for the week. It's Monday here. I want to say hello to Sarthak. Thanks for the constant support. And as far as these stories go, a lot of things happen, you don't think about it, right? Because you're in your moment in that phase of life, and then for some reason, some things come back. It could be years or even decades later, and you're like, whoa, I was in severe danger. I definitely have had a few of those myself. But anyway, hope you guys are well. See you tomorrow. When I was about 13 or 14, I got a phone call from my best friend from primary school. I had not seen her since then, and we had a lot to catch up on, so it was great to hear from her. She then proceeded to tell me how I was at a particular place in my city that was very far away from my home, but the issue was I had only gone there once in my life, and that was years earlier when I was still in primary school. I said no, I wasn't there. She insisted and described and named a boy I was dating at the time. She said I was with him hanging out in his suburb. I was confused at the time, but quickly moved on to other topics because we were getting nowhere. I wasn't there. Yes, you so were. Later on, I realized how weird that was, but I had absolutely no recollection. It could have taken a whole day to get there, hang out, and come home. Not something I'd forget. I didn't like the boy that much and was very cagey about introducing him to people, so publicly hanging out was not on our agenda. I have no explanation for it, and I'm 51 years old now. An older neighbor would stop and chat with me while I was walking my dogs. The guy was harmless. Several knee and hip surgeries made him hobble, and his health wasn't great. I was a young teen and had lived down the road from this guy my whole life. He started saying things like, once you turn 18, everyone's the same age, and you could come inside and visit, have some coffee if you left your dogs home. I figured he was just lonely retiree who wanted to chat, but the only time I saw him was when I was walking my dogs, and I wasn't inclined to walk 3 miles just for coffee. A few years later, his much younger, much healthier brother and he pulled into my driveway while I was outside picking vegetables. They chatted about what I was growing, if I ever sold produce, and if the drought was affecting it. Then he said, "Didn't you have a birthday recently? I think your boyfriend had all those signs on the road." I said, "Yeah, I just turned 19 and he was my fiancé." And that's when his brother tried to drag me to their vehicle. Fortunately, my fiancé was home and heard me coming unglued. Story of me being an oblivious idiot. I was in my apartment in Brooklyn, pretty far out in Bushwick, before Bushwick became the hipster haven it is today, yeah. I was lying on my bed in my underwear. I'm a female watching Netflix, and it was my day off. It was spring, and I had the window open to let in a breeze. Both my roommates were out at work or classes. My bedroom had the fire escape off the window. This becomes important. Something rings the buzzer. We had been bothered by those scammers coming around asking if we wanted to save money on our electric bill or some shit. So I didn't answer, as I wasn't expecting a delivery or any visitors. A minute and a half later, the screen in the window to my bedroom starts to move and pop out of the window. Next thing I know, a leg is in my window and someone is coming into my apartment. I, half naked and very confused, just sit up on my bed. I truly had no idea what was going on, so I just said, hello? And the guy bolts out the window and down the fire escape. My first reaction was, well, that was weird. Then I finally realized someone was trying to rob me, and that could have gone much worse. So I was about 14 or 15 years old, home alone one night with my two buddies. My doorbell rings around 8 o'clock when the sun is already down. I answer the door and this guy is trying to sell something. I can't remember what it was. I told him my parents weren't home, which was the biggest mistake. After that, he proceeded to ask if he could come in and explain what he's selling. I told him no, but he insisted he'd come in, at least for a glass of water. I said no once again. He said he would come back around another time. Door closed, end of story. I and my buddies instantly got a bad vibe after we shut the door, so we decided to leave and head to one of their houses down the street from my house. We walked there no problem and explained to my buddy's mom what just happened. She was a detective for the local PD and asked for a description of this guy. We tell her what he looks like, and then she proceeds to tell us it's the exact description of a guy that recently murdered his girlfriend and is on the run. So, after that bit of interesting news, we decide to walk back to my house. As we were walking back, a figure walks out between two houses across the street. Lo and behold, it's the same guy. We keep walking and this guy is perpendicular to us, walking on the opposite side of the street. As we approach my house, we start panicking because he's crossing the street. We open up my front door and my buddy decides to shout, "Mom, we're home," and the guy hears it and dashes off. Yes, it was creepy in the moment, but the older I get, the more I realize how much danger I was really in. Some of my earliest memories are of me talking to thin air. I'd have conversations with people or objects that didn't exist, and it seemed totally normal to me at the time. When I was around 1 to 2 years old, my family lived in a duplex house on Long Island. I remember talking to people that weren't really there. I'd get vibes from objects like wall clocks, like they were people and they wanted to talk to them. So I did. Sometimes I object and the object scared me. Sometimes it wasn't anything. I just got a feeling like someone was with me. Turns out, for the entire time my family lived there, everyone had strange experiences in that house, and they were mostly centered around me, which is weird considering I had 3 other siblings at the time. My little brother wasn't born yet. Apparently I almost died in the womb, and ever since I was born, these weird things started to happen. My brother would see dark shadows across, darting the floor. Apparently, one time I rolled down the stairs in my stroller, but instead of falling down, it was like something picked up the stroller and carried it down the steps. My other brother saw it happen, and he swears up and down it looked like someone had picked me up and set me down gently at the foot of the stairs, unharmed, still in my stroller. The strange experiences stopped when we moved. To this day, I'm convinced that my current obsession and fear of ghosts was built subconsciously from those days in that little duplex on Long Island.